glad to see everybody and to be here. So glad to be here. So glad to be here tonight on Let's Talk Agile. My co-host will be joining shortly, but as one knows, when one has a pregnant wife that is close to that point, when there are certain things she wants to eat, it is important that you get those things and you keep her happy, right? That's one of those things when you talk about your highest priority is to satisfy the customer. Your highest priority at any pregnancy point is to keep your main customer, the person who is carrying that child, happy, no matter what it takes. You have to make sure that that happens. Hi, Addie, how are you? Welcome. It is so good to be here. It is Thursday. It's Thursday. It's amazing to see Thursday. This week is just like gone, flown by. But we're here today to talk about Agile and kind of just keep everybody inspired. One of the changes that are happening right now that I think it's really important to bring everybody's attention to is the returning to work. Returning to work is the challenge now that is on the table. And for a lot of people, this is not an easy situation. It's big change, not little change. It's actually big change, that getting ready to go back into the office, go amongst everybody. I mean, that's change. There's some real kind of change. So we're going to kind of talk about that and talk about some tips and some things that Scrum Masters can do and organizations can do to kind of help to support, this coming back to the workplace. Because a lot of people have used the phrase of, it's going back to normal, but it isn't going back to normal. It will never be going back to normal. It's always going to be the essence that this is a new world we're forming, a new normal, and we're going to have to find the rhythm that works for every organization, and within every organization, every team. Let me bring in my co-host.
Hey, Lizzie, how's it going?
It's going good. As you can see, I'm still in my kitchen.
Hey, you're still being agile.
I'm being agile, yeah. So I'm being from my kitchen. So there's still the purple theme that is here, because purple is all in the base of my house. It's my favorite color, so it is everywhere. So there's purple pretty much. There's not many places you can go in my house and there isn't a purple that is going on. So the purple theme is still here, but I haven't got all the other stuff that would normally be in the office, but I'm good. So I still got a makeshift office on my kitchen table.
That's good. It works. As long as it makes you feel good, right? Seeing the purple.
It's working. The purple is definitely very soothing. It's definitely very soothing. And I'm definitely drinking more water now. I'm actually in the kitchen. Where I be in my office. So,
right there.
So that is a thing that is definitely new. So Addie's just saying big change. I started my first Scrum Master role remotely. How is that going? What does it feel like being remotely a Scrum Master? Are you feeling, Addie, like you are still having the benefits of really getting to know your team? Are you finding you're having to work harder to get to know your team? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can be tough for a lot of Scrum Masters just because they've never done it before. And so the dynamic of kind of getting to know your team and getting to know how they work and getting kind of that face-to-face communication that you would normally get with your team can be tough for a Scrum Master just starting out in a remote role. So I've been, reading and taking a lot of notes of some things I've seen online for how different people are kind of coping with that. But I'm still very interested in seeing what her experience is, how long she's been there, how large her team is, and how that dynamic is going.
Yeah, and Miss Addie, I hope you're hearing, but there may be a slight delay between where you're watching us from and as we're saying something.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be great to, Addie, are you up to coming on? Like this that's like on the fly, just real brand new. That's like on the fly. Addie, are you up to that? If you're up to it, tell me yes, and I will send you a link to be able to do that. If you're up to, if you're not, it's Let's do the chat. Right. Don't feel any pressure. Please don't feel. Yes, I am
No,
here. Okay. So are you up to coming on and talking about it, Addie? So Addie's out. Addie's actually in Facebook. Okay. She's talking to us. Addie's talking to us from Facebook.
how
So are
many
you up?
places are you?
So we are beaming right now into Facebook. So we're on our Facebook. Oh, Addie's up to it. Okay, Addie, I'm gonna send you an invite link, and I'm gonna just put it in the chat right here, so you will. Actually, I can just go straight to Facebook, so you'll want to see it there. And because I have to still admit people, so if somebody decides they want to be dodgy, they won't be able to come in unless I actually put them in. So go ahead, click on that link, Addie, and you will be able to come in and we can talk about this. So this will be cool. This is very kind of impromptu of us, but it's kind of like as things emerge. I think that's such a great topic to talk to as these things emerge, just to kind of like go ahead and grab in on this topic and have a discussion about it, because I think one of the fears, and I think that's one of the reasons why organizations are pulling to bring people back, is the fear of can people consistently be agile while being distant,
Right, right, right.
right? And I mean, I think we can say almost 2 years, although it's not fully 2 years, but we can almost say that we've proven that people can,
Right.
but it's not, everybody's not wired for it.
That's true. There are a lot of people I've spoken to that are looking forward to coming back to the office, and they miss kind of that interaction with people. Maybe they, could be like empty nesters, or could be people who don't have
Mhm.
anyone else at home with them, and so they kind of need and yearn for kind of that attention. So,
Yeah, because people are wanting contact.
right, right,
Right.
right,
So there's still a lot of people who are wanting that contact. And so the feeling is I need to be in the same proximity, in the same space of somebody to have contact. It's interesting. I have met more people and collaborated with way more people
yep,
than I did prior
yep,
to that. I mean,
same,
I just hadn't done it before.
same.
And now there are so many people that I collaborate with, and I've got quite tight to and feel emotions for and all the rest of that, and they were all, these relationships were built remotely. So
Yeah.
I think the remote thing has, and here's Addie, let's pop Addie in. Hey Addie.
Hi.
Hey, Addie, what's
Hey.
going on?
Hey, Vic.
Hey, how
So
you
I
doing?
think
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
this is good. Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome, welcome to the link.
Hi,
Right?
Daisy.
And share with us your experience. What has it been like for you being a remote Scrum Master? How does it feel? Because you've started as a remote Scrum Master.
Yeah. Yeah. Last year was my first experience as a Scrum Master. So it
Mm-hmm.
pretty much went kind of. The first job was very okay because it was a new team. So we were all kind of learning together, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
along with everything. I was creating my own, ceremonies and all that. And then this year is more like a silo team where they kind of do things hybridly. And this is my second job as a Scrum Master, the second job I will take on, the second project. So it's been kind of challenging to manage remotely for this time around. The first time was okay, but the second time, I mean, this the second job was very challenging because they are already into the project, and they leave no room for me to make adjustment on the team, and it's very difficult for me to like get them on things and kind of bring out to them like, okay, this is what I need. I just started, I think, last week as well. This
Mm-hmm.
second, so it's
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I think a lot of people are probably, um, like you said, with the idea of not physically being there, it probably is harder on some of those people because the team's already been formed almost. So
Yeah,
they're doing this, aren't they? So then you've got to try and penetrate through
yes,
this that they've already built.
yes.
Yeah.
They actually had a project manager. They don't have a product owner. The business analyst is more or less like a product owner slash. He's kind of like a product owner, a project
Okay.
manager, at the same time a lead tech. So it's kind of weird, but so they put me in there to be a project manager. They were even asking me today, do I know SQL? Can I? It is crazy. So
Oh, they're trying. This sounds like they're trying to. This sounds like we're merging with XP here. Everybody just do a little bit of everything.
yeah,
I'm trying to get
yeah.
3 for 1.
Yeah, the job description said Scrum Master. When I got in, my the title of my position, it says Project Manager. Then they showing me the codes, and I was like, okay, SQL. And I don't know. I'm a developer. I'm a project manager. I'm a Scrum Master. I don't know what I.
I think lots of companies play this particular
Right.
game, right?
Yeah.
We
Okay.
need this. Let's advertise for this, but when they come on, we'll make them be this and this and this and this, which is not practicing transparency at all,
Mm.
right? Because they know they're going to do that. It's not practicing transparency, and it's something that I think has to be, you kind of like you have to call it out and be like, hold the phone 1 second here, right?
Right.
This don't make any kind of sense. What's going on? But I think sometimes people don't want to challenge it because again, it's a
Yeah,
job, right?
everyone is offshore. Everyone. They are all
Mm.
in India. All everyone in my team, they are all in India. No one is here, and
So are they
I
working on US time, Addy, or are you having to work across the time zone?
all on US time.
Okay,
Yeah, Central time.
okay. They're all on US time. Interesting. So have you what are some of the plans you've got to try to get
Yeah,
everybody?
the only thing I've done so far with them are like the normal daily Scrum. You know, I try to put the sprint review twice
Hmm.
within the sprint. So I try to set up the meeting for tomorrow for sprint review, and I asked if they've ever done it. They said they have never done the review, uh, but
Okay.
yeah, they've done planning, but they actually they did planning. But it's just like every time they finish a sprint, they take on another plan. So it's more
Right,
like
gotcha.
the planning is almost like review to them.
Got it. They don't see those differences and why they're meeting. So you're gonna have to do a little bit of teaching.
Oh yeah,
You're
oh
gonna,
yeah.
you're gonna have to do, yeah, you're gonna have to do a little bit of teaching just to bring them up. And a good thing might be even, because you're remote, is take the Scrum guide, right? And just take copies of certain pieces. So like take copies of, hey guys, let's just look at what a review is. Here's some points. Here's what we can do next time to just try and introduce this. So do a little sprinkle of it instead of like a hard, you know what I mean? Because then everybody's just gonna
Oh,
give you that jerk.
okay,
But maybe the next sprint, let's do this, right?
okay.
And then let's review and see how that feels, like how it resonates with everybody. And then the next sprint, let's do this. And when you do the sprint planning, send them out what is in sprint planning, break it
Yeah.
up. So,
Yeah.
kind of like this is what we would be doing in the first part of sprint planning. This is what we'll be doing in the second part. So they can see that difference between the concept of it being review and the concept of it really being a planning session.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
know what
In
I
my
mean? Yeah,
invites that
help.
I send out, I like to put that paragraph or two from the Scrum Guide into it. So for the daily stand up, I put what it is and what we do. The sprint review, I take that paragraph out and put it in the invitation so that if they've never seen the Scrum Guide or they don't have a good understanding of it, at least it's there and the understanding, and we can have a conversation around it if there are questions, right?
Yeah, because that way they realize it's not that you're just trying to be pedantic. You know what I mean? You're really trying to educate them, and you're not trying to shove it all down their throat at once. You're like, okay, this is what it is, but how about we're just going to try these pieces? You know, and so do they do, I have to ask, do they do retrospectives?
I don't think so. Because I looked through. Okay, most of everything is on Azure DevOps, so I through everything that they have, and I asked for SharePoint sites if they have anything on their SharePoint site. So, like sometimes all these companies have those artifacts. So I see a lot of Excel sheets, just like that, just detailed project status and things like that. But it's not even fully detailed. It's just like 2 lines of, okay, we did this code, we design, analyze, and things like that. So there is no the storyline is not according to the format. It's just like we want to design this, we want to design that. There is no as this, as that. There is no as a user I want to be able. So it's kind of weird. So I'm kind of starting afresh with them.
Okay, well, this is good. This is gonna build some good muscles for you.
Yeah, the very first thing I changed was the. Excuse me.
I said you're about to get some great muscles built. Good muscles, Eddie. You get some good Scrum Master muscle from this assignment. Oh yes, yes.
Yeah, that's why I called Victor this evening. Victor is helping me with that.
Yeah, right, you're gonna build some good muscles. Excellent muscles are coming. Excellent muscles, man. By the time we see you like 3 months, you're gonna be like, hey, dumbass man.
Now, I think it's also important to talk to the manager or whoever it was that hired you and find out, like, okay, look, what am I really here for, right? You guys have kind of put a lot of things on my plate, and the team is and the organization even is struggling with a lot. So what is it exactly that you need my assistance with? Do you need me writing SQL queries with the team, right? Is that what you hired me for? Do you need a Scrum Master to help put some processes in place to help better facilitate the development and releases for the team? Or do you need a project manager that is there to command and control the team and like really dictate things to the team? Like, what is it that the organization needs primarily, and let me fill that role well versus trying to do all three of them not well at all?
Yeah, just bring them to the table. And when you come at it that, you just say, look, I'm really here to serve, right? And I want to deliver as much value as possible to the areas you need it the most. So you tell me right now, what do you think, right, you need from me to move the needle? Right. And hear what it is they're saying. Because you've got to remember sometimes that there are so many organizations who use the word Agile, right, and say Scrum, but they still don't really know what it means. They don't really know what's entailed in that, right? So this is where you kind of also, when you're cutting and pasting, you send in that Scrum Master role. Right? So here's how this role has been designed to help. Which facets of these are really important to you right now? So let them cherry pick out of that. Don't just give them total blank space. See what I'm saying? Don't give them just blank space, because they need to be kind of confronted with what the role is.
Right.
But again, you're not doing it in a cocky way. Like, you're not talking down to them like, what's wrong with you? You don't know what a Scrum Master is. Why are you wasting my time? It's not that kind of thing. You're coming in with a very much that servant heart, right? And that coach mentality of, I want to educate, I want to help. so that you win them over as well, because you don't want to alienate them. Not in
Yeah.
your first week. Just
Yeah.
trying to do it in the first month. You're trying to make friends.
Right.
Build allies in your first month. So yeah, that's definitely something I would suggest. Is just go send them just send them some comp pastes and even a checkbox next to it, which things really kind of resonate with you. Make it real easy for them. Like
Right.
put it in a little Excel sheet or a Google Doc, and they can just click this is what we need. And the things that they don't need, give them a color to put the things that they don't need, and then you're going to be able to look at it too. And you may even can make a decision of, I think I ain't gonna stay here too long because it's a joke. You may feel that way on the inside, right? And start looking for your next gig. Or you may be like, you know what, this is a challenge. I really want to take this on. I want to get my stripes. You know what I mean? Get some battle scars, get some stories, because this is going to be great stories for you, this experience. Right? Even if it's just for that alone. I personally would stick it out a while because I'd want the stories. Right? Because here you are now in this environment where you have got brand new, right? Brand new and going straight in remote on a team that's already been going. Because it's different when you start with the team on day one and they haven't going. So everybody comes together. But then when you're kind of coming to another team where now, hey, they weren't going before. Right. And I've got to come in the middle and be part of something that's already formed. That can be really difficult. And that takes a lot more moxie.
Right.
You know what I mean? That takes a whole lot more moxie because the team's formed and everybody's like, okay, so who's this person? Who's this person they've sent us now?
Right.
What do you think about them? And everybody's talking about you.
Right.
Everybody is talking about you.
It's funny because the last a couple of teams ago that I joined, they had just, I guess, ran off their scrum master. And so they were taking bets on like how long I was going to last on the team and how long before person A or B on the team ran me off. Right. And so it was funny. And so after I made it a year, the team kind of came to me and was like, we didn't think you were going to last 3 months. Like we thought you would have ran by now. So it's fun. They're definitely talking about you. They're definitely
talking about you. And that's why you gotta but it comes with the turf.
It does.
As a scrum master, it comes with the turf. Everybody doesn't warm to us. Like, oh, we have a scrum master. Oh, scrum master, where have you been? It's I've not heard of anybody walking into a position that's like that. Where you get the fairy tale of, oh, we've been waiting for you. You're our hero.
Right.
No, it's like, you're the troublemaker. What are you going to come and bitch about now? You're the one who's come with this scrum stupidness. We like what we're doing and we're working quite fine. We don't need your interference. That's more what it tends to be like. So yeah, it's definitely, I always say you got to get your trench scars, man. Because if you don't get your stories. Right. And it's important to get those stories because they add and they help you to help people coming up behind you, other scrum masters, which is an important thing to do in everything you do as you're learning. And one of the things I would say to you, added too, is start blogging about this stuff. Start making blogs, start writing about this stuff. Don't use people's names, don't use the industry per se that it's in, like the name of the company. But, if you were working for like British Rail, you could say you're working in the train industry. You know what I mean? And the person's name is Jack, but it's not Jack in your thing. It's Jane. Make them a whole different character, right? As you talk about some of their struggles so people can't clearly pick out who's who. But writing about it also will allow you to have some perspective because it allows you to kind of pull up when you're writing about it and allows you to stay a little bit objective. Do you know what I mean? Because it's real easy to get really sucked in and take a lot of these things like it's happening to you personally. So one of the things I would warn you about is in all the things that people do, be careful not to take it as a personal hit at you, Addie, the person. Okay? Because they're not really hitting at you, Addie, the person. They're hitting at what you represent. And you represent change. And people don't digest change well. So a lot of the acting out that people will do, it's really just about the fact they're acting out against change, not acting out against Addie. Right? And that's one of those things you have to always remind yourself of as you're doing this and you're building your career and building your experience. When people, it's not you, it's what you represent. And that helps you to stay objective and keep doing what you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Without, like I say, the tears that you go back to hotels and cry because you think, oh my God, they all hate me. They hate me. Why don't these people like me? Everything, it's what you're representing. You know what I mean? And it took me years to learn that. It took me many years to really learn that that's what it is. Right? It's not got nothing to do with me. These people don't know me to really like or dislike me. They haven't had enough time. They don't know me, right? So it's what we're coming in and representing. One of the tools that I always share with Scrum Masters and coaches to use when they're in with teams is the John Fisher change curve, right? Look up the John Fisher change curve, get that picture. I like the 2012 model. There are other models, but that's kind of my favorite one. It's got some great questions. And just for yourself, as you're working with them, do one that you do yourself where you plot them. Right. So like I call it like your private John Fisher change curve, where you got an avatar for everybody and you just plot each person as to where it is you believe they are, and then give one to the team for them to plot where they think they are and kind of compare. Right. And every retrospective, that's one of those things that you can use. And everybody replots where they are now and just keep a record of that, like an Excel sheet. And it will show you the growth that people are doing. And you'll end up getting some data as to how they're moving through change. Right? It's a really, really good tool that you can do. You can get really, really creative with it. But that's one of the things I always advise use when we're dealing with teams. Right? That John Fisher change curve allows you to stay very objective. Right? Because you're just realizing, whoops, that's where they are in this change cycle right now. Okay. So then that allows you to posture yourself. Because if you realize you're in the place where everybody's in hostility, then you've got to greet hostility with kindness and empathy, right? That's where your emotional intelligence has got to kind of turn up so that, you can do well in that environment. So that's kind of exciting. Gosh, I remember. That's kind of exciting. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. Makes me almost want to accept some of these jobs that people keep putting in my email box to just go play for a while. Let me go play. I'll play for a while. Let me go just go to an organization, go have some fun. Just the crazy Lizzie come in and just mess with everybody. But the concept of waking up every single day and being someplace for 9 a.m. in the morning or 8 a.m. in the morning intentionally every day, that doesn't really pull me right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily pull me. So it's like today, right? I had the luxury, and I'm very grateful for it. I had the luxury today to say, okay, I stayed up until maybe about 2:00 this morning, right? And then I went to sleep. And then I woke up at 6 and I was like, okay, I could do this and this. And so I daddled and did a couple of things that I needed to get done. And then I'm like, go back to bed. I couldn't do that. If
Right.
I was working at somebody's place, I wouldn't have that luxury to be able to be that flexible. So yeah, I'm glad where I am. Although there's a couple of things I'm thinking about doing. It's like kind of on my burn. I'm like, am I going to? It sounds kind of interesting. Maybe I'll be a little bit, maybe 2 days a week. I'll come help you guys out. I got a couple of things that I'm thinking about. But yeah, you guys are good. So I take my hats off to you, but you got to get your stripes. I have got stripes and I have got scars and I have got my stories.
Yeah, we're working up to your level, Lizzie.
I got them stories, man. Ooh, got those stories. And I have those tears. Those hotels. I remember the hotels I was in when I cried after coming off the shift and the headaches I used to get walking into certain sites, and just because I took it all too hard, too personal. Yeah. Right. Which is why I can advise people today, don't do that. Don't do it. The work and you are two separate entities. Right? You've got outputs, you've got outcomes, and you've got you, the person.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And those are things that you do, but it's not who you are.
Right. Right.
And that's the part you've always got to remember. You are who you are, and who you are is not dictated by the things that you do.
Yep. Yep.
It's not dictated by that. It just isn't. So those are the things that people, and those are the things we got to help project managers with, right? That was always one of the things I found I have to help project managers with the most, was having them disconnect from what they did for a living versus who they were. And society likes to merge these together for you to form your identity, right, by what you do. No, what I do for a living doesn't necessarily equate to who I am as an individual,
Right.
right? And so that sometimes you got to remind people your skill sets, they're your skills. These are things you learn. That's not who you are.
Right.
You know, you are your name and your essence, and that's who you are, and you should be proud of that. And you can take this essence and who you are and put it into any industry, anywhere. You can do lots of things as a person. There's so much opportunities available to us. But when you just allow yourself to become viced by a job title,
Mm-hmm.
you got to really be careful with that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's advice I got to put out there to people. Be very, as things are changing and companies are letting people go or giving people early retirement or packages and etc. Don't get yourself wrapped up in that as an idea of you're good or you're a bad. No.
Right. Right.
Job.
Yeah, I have some friends that I've had to speak to, some conversations about this today, actually. It's funny because I always got to let them know, like, organizations are going to do what's best for organizations. So whether that means giving you a 2-week notice or making today your last day, your access won't work when you get off of this call that we're letting you go at. You have to always do what's best for you and what's best for your family. And so we shouldn't get tied or get our identities confused with the identity of this organization that's been here for 50 or 100 years. They're going to keep plugging along after we're gone. And we can't get too bogged down with the weight of that. And so that kind of leads me to this question of last week was the week of the 5-day +1 challenge, right?
We did the 5-day challenge last week. Yeah, we did.
And so you were talking about helping people find a role that fit them, right? Because what fits me might not fit you, as we kind of just talked about the place you are in your career. And so I think the people who tune into the show would like to know, how that went. What were some of the takeaways?
Oh, that challenge was so interesting because it's the first challenge I've ever done. Right. So it was very much experimental for me of, let's try this challenge and see how it works. Mm-hmm. And the part that was interesting the most was how disconnected people are from themselves. Mm-hmm. Yet when they go into an interview, right, they think they brought themselves to the interview and they haven't, which is why people struggle so much in interviews, because they don't show up. The job titles show up. All the job titles they've had show up, but they don't show up. And I think I was able to get that to go off for everybody. Right? Because a lot of people reached out and said, it was really emotional, Lizzie, having to write down some of the things, the fears I have about myself, how I see myself, whether I like myself. That for some people said that was really like, they weren't expecting that. But now they understand the fact that their life is their experience. So now being able to craft that, and that's one of the things I think I loved the most, was people being able to look at their past and find some events that they could own and use their story and articulate it right into that role and frame it around the role that they were going for. Just how fabulous that is. Because now when they show up, they're not going to give the interviewer interview fatigue. You know what I mean? They're going to have these fabulous conversations that will be very memorable and very authentic. People are always saying be authentic, but nobody shows you how. What does that mean? How do I show up being authentic? A lot of people think showing up authentic is the way you look or the way you dress, but no, You showing up being authentic is when you bring who you are to the table, your very essence, your being, all the things you've been through, all your experiences, bringing that to the table and being able to be you. That's authenticity, right? And a lot of people haven't been taught to be that, or even dare to think that they can. But that's what makes the difference. And that's why when you then go to the roles, right, and you bring your essence to it, you can do it in a whole nother level from what you've ever done anything before, because you're showing up every day. You're showing up, right? Not the job title, but the person, and you're making connections. And I was talking about this with Trisha today on our show, when we're talking about this need for real connections to be made, and not the superficial framework articulated.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So actually, instead of the friendly, actually getting to know people. Because could you imagine if teams really connect? Yeah. Like for real connect, the kind of collaboration they're going to do and the kind of innovation that's going to come out of that. Yeah. And you're talking about blow your mind.
Right.
But if everybody always goes in and just carves their space and is coming into what very fragmented.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
won't be experts.
Yeah. There's no point to that. But again, it's teaching people this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's tough, man. The world, or I don't know if it's the world or America, but like we live in a very like kind of selfish, individualistic, state of being most of the time. And so I think people being told or advised or coached to being like we, that's not a primary pronoun for most people. And so
but if we're talking about team, we make people make the jest, right?
Right.
There's no I in team. Okay, right. But how does that work then? Right. Show us, how do we do that? How do we take the I out of the team?
Mm-hmm.
What is the process of that? And there's a process to it, right? Yeah. Because when we look statistically, people spend more time with their work family than they do with their family. Right. So when you're being, there was an acronym I used in the challenge called Under Mask, right? And I called it Maimed Attempt at Secret Keeping. Right. Now, when you spend all your time, no, you can't see me. Don't see me. Right. There's a whole lot of energy in holding up those masks.
Yeah, definitely.
And keeping the secret of who you are from everybody.
Definitely.
Now, if we can be in an environment where connections happen, then when we talk about the forming and storming of a team, yes, you're going to have the storm. But the storm will be an authentic, real storm. So when you come out of the storm, now the team's really going to mesh. And they're really going to come together, and that family will form.
Right.
So be healthy. You know what I mean? Instead of all this dysfunction. And with all the challenges that everybody is coming back to teams with, and all the trauma that everybody's coming back to teams with because of what we've been through globally and what parts of the world are still going through globally, right? With COVID and the health scare and all this stuff that's going on, I think there is an opportunity for teams to reform in a very authentic human way and take the gift that the universe gave us, right? To come back together as humans first and everything else second.
Yeah, I just hope that the hierarchy of corporate structure and management allows teams to do that authentically and doesn't try to be too involved in making or forcing that to happen.
Well, there's going to be people who have the ticks in the boxes to make, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be the people who have the ticks in the boxes to make. And so there's people who are going to say, my organization is going to be the most belonging, most open, fabulous place ever, right? And this desire will become obsessive. right? So you will have certain places where that's happening, but that's where leaders need coaches, right? Leaders need coaching. Every executive should have a personal coach. I mean, they just should, right? And I have learned to realize you need more than one coach. You need coaches for different areas, but I think it's definitely something they need to all invest in personal coaches and a coach that is available 24/7 of the workday, not like saying 24 hours a day, but for the
Right.
workday, you're talking 9 to 5 is the standard work hours, an on-demand coach that is available for leaders and for employees, right? For team members. So that when
Mhm.
people are feeling that sense of overwhelm, right, there's a safe space to go through and you want to go to second. Sometimes you got to do that, right? And there's somebody there to catch you in that and help you to
Mm.
navigate it and let you know you're not being any less of a human or any less of a professional.
Right. Right.
You're just being a human.
Right.
And we cannot hide the fact that organizations are made of humans anymore. We just can't hide that. And as agilists, we have a number one value, which is individuals and interactions. We now have to exemplify individuals and the power of the individual and the care needed for the individual to be a great individual. So then when you bring them together in interactions, they're healthy enough to connect and make great collaborations. Right? That's going to be on the agilists now,
Right.
right? Us coaches, us scrum masters, it's going to be on us to help organizations navigate through that stuff. So
Right.
we've got to take the things that we've been quoting and quoting at people and take it and do some stuff with it to make some change a real reality. So we've got some challenging days ahead of us.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's easy, right? It's going to be it's going to be a lot of inspecting and adapting, a lot, and a lot of taking time out to reflect. And the principle about creating the environment where people feel motivated, that's going to be a really hard job.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be probably one of the hardest jobs that is out there to do. And that job is on Scrum Master shoulders, right? Because we're supposed to foster this environment and help the organization to understand how to foster it. So Scrum Masters are going to have to come to a whole nother level. So I'm actually excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind
It's gonna be tough though. There's still so much that's still going on in the world, so much uncertainty still, right? Where it looks like this thing is on the right track where we're at, but there are other parts of the country where it's flaring back up worse than it was before. So
of.
um, we'll see. We'll see. I'm
We
really
will.
I'm really hopeful for some organizations. I've seen kind of both extremes from organizations that are saying every employee must be back in the office right
Mm-hmm.
now. And I've seen organizations that are saying, you know what, we're shifting from a 100% on-site policy to 3 days on-site, 2 days off-site. And to some that are saying, hey, we still don't know where this is going to go. Continue to work from home for the time being. And to some saying, you know what? Work from home indefinitely if you want to. We see that you've been productive. We trust you. We're making progress. If you want to work from home, work from home. If you want to come to the office, we'll be here when you decide to come back. So
And
it's
I think that's for me personally. I think that's the most strategic move. That's just that, and that's Lizzie's personal opinion. You do not have to
a
agree.
long game. That's the long game, right?
Right. It is because you're looking at what does the workforce need is going to need in tomorrow. Like, what are we building for tomorrow, and what society are we wanting to see in tomorrow? Because
Mhm.
that's the questions leaders have to ask too. In the choices that they're making and the things that they're forcing in, what is that going to do for the society of tomorrow? Because as leaders of organization, we have a responsibility to the communities that our organizations are in and the world that it's in and how it affects the world and it shifts and moves it. That responsibility is on leadership shoulders too. A lot of people don't look at it. But when you think that loads of people today quote things that Henry Ford said, shape society.
Yeah.
Right? Shaped families. It shaped where people were living and people migrated to certain places. When you think about the steel mills and all these things, they shifted people. It affected communities. It affected countries. So it is time, I believe, for organizations to take on the responsibility that they have to the future.
Yeah.
And that goes beyond now dollars.
Right.
Because if they make the right moves, right, and do the right things, it's always there's always going to be money in the future.
Absolutely.
And then they leave a legacy for our tomorrow that will keep going, creating a more positive spaces, right, which I think is needed long term, not short term, but long term. We've got to really kind of take ownership of this stuff. And I guess I put a lot of that on leaders' shoulders and on our industry, on our agile industry, because I think we're supposed to be leaders of change. I'm not saying we're great at change, right? Because we've been affected by it, right? And we're humans too. But
Absolutely.
I think our change muscle is probably more mature than a lot of other people out there.
True. That's a fact.
Right? And so that's what makes the difference.
Yeah.
So
it's funny that you mentioned, these titans of industry changing basically the world and not knowing it. But you mentioned Henry Ford, and I remember learning that Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Plant company is essentially the reason why we have a 5-day work week, 40 hours, right? Because that's what he instituted in his mills, and it's kind of like, I guess, one of the largest employers around the Great Depression. Like, that's just what was adopted across the country. And so now, instead of being able to work 3 or 4 days a week, we have an hour day for 5 days out of the week.
Yeah. And you have
just because somebody just made it up, right?
That's it. And people just adopted it. And nobody bothered to ask, why do we do this?
Right.
Why does it have to look this way?
Right.
And maybe now, because you hear about people talking about the 2-day work week, the 3-day work week, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs using that model and, being extremely productive with it. The question becomes sustainable pace.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, finding. Every organization needs to understand for their organization and for their people, what is sustainable pace?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what does it need to be now while people are still because people are still traumatized.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. And you don't know what's going to trigger people either which way. So what does that need to look like? So that you create enough safety for people to be able to work. And because one of the things that's become very much evident over these past year and a half is mental health. Right? Is 40 hours a week going to be good for the mental health?
Right.
Or are you creating time bombs?
Yeah.
That's that's something to really think about, right?
Yeah.
Because when we see all these crazy things when people, the time bomb go boom and people shoot places up and they do time bombs, right? Because there's all this pent up stuff that's been going on. But if you just got to care about it. It comes down to this simple thing of caring about the humans.
Right.
I always come back at it. It's like I'm almost like a stuck record on it, right? But it comes down to caring about the humans. We have a labor force, an intelligence force that is made up of humans. It's not made up of robots.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, right? And some industries have more robots in them than humans, right? But the industries where we've got what I call intelligent workers, your brain doesn't think so well when you're under stress.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, right?
So many hours, even a day, that it can operate at peak performance before the performance starts tanking.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, I experienced it myself. I mean, I tend to run a lot off adrenaline, right? I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. It's just a fact. I tend to run off adrenaline, but I know when I've hit my point because I can't think anymore. That it's not thinking like that.
Yeah.
It's doing this, and then you've lost your thought and the train of thought. What was I thinking? You're like, nah, time to go to sleep.
Time to go to sleep.
Time to go to sleep. Shut it down, because your brain ain't thinking anymore. You have exhausted yourself now. Like, sit yourself down and shut the computer down because you just.
I can remember being in school trying to write past, trying to stay up and meet those deadlines, and after that certain hour, you're trying to finish that paragraph, and you look up and like 30 minutes have gone by, and you're just halfway through a sentence, and you can't even finish the sentence, and it's like,
no,
okay,
right?
I'm done. Like, it's diminishing returns at this point.
It is, man. It is. So you gotta own that when that happens, because you're not being productive. You're being busy, but you're not being productive at that point, right?
Right.
And I think that's the key, is focusing in on what is the production value that you're looking for from your teams, and what can your teams commit to in the state they currently are today. Right? Because that's the balance. That's that transparency that's going to have to come out. Right? Can people really stay as focused as they could do before?
Yeah.
So we have a challenge ahead, and it's going to be really interesting to see globally how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
What the world of work is going to be like in the future as a result now of what we've gone through. How many people are going to be unwise enough to try to pull everybody back into the old paradigm? And how many people are going to be strategic and thoughtful about what it is they do in the future? So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be definitely interesting.
The dinosaurs are going to be the ones pulling everybody back in.
And we know what happened to the dinosaurs.
Yeah, we know.
Go to museums to see them. We use them as fossil fuel, and we use them to fuel our cars.
Right.
So if that's where people are aiming to be, Godspeed. We will put you in our cars. Not a problem. We'll talk about you. Do you remember that company? Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll be talking about y'all like that. This is what we will be doing. We will be talking about you. Like, yes. Do you remember when we worked there? Could you imagine we worked for a company like that? So glad you left. Yeah. Because people are going to have options, right? We got intelligent professional workers. There's options. People just sometimes realize they're there.
There was a news story the other day I was watching about Burger King. I don't remember where it was at, but on the sign outside, you can put the little letters in the sign, and it said $50 to come in for an interview. They're literally paying people just to come interview because they can't get applicants. They can't get people in. And the same news story was saying that people would submit applications, and a lot of times, like, grocery stores had to resort to like not even interviewing people, just hiring them, because they'd interview them once, and by the time they called them back a couple of days later to give them the job, they'd already gotten another job elsewhere. So they literally can't fill the positions even at that level. And so you just think with, whether you love him, hate him, or indifferent, what Biden has done with allowing more H-1N visas in, right? So now you've got that workforce that was no longer able to get sponsorship from U.S. corporations. Now they're able to start coming back and start working. So there's a lot of jobs and a lot of people that are vying for that.
America is an immigrant country.
Right.
At its core, right?
You're an immigrant.
I'm an immigrant. Right?
I'm an immigrant.
It's an immigrant country. It was built from immigrants. It wasn't built from people who were natively here, or people who came from elsewhere. So it's part of the DNA of this country. Right. And if you look at when it's succeeded and when it's built, it's always done well from immigrant labor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's built its economy and made it the robust country that it is. So it makes sense to pull back because it's a country of immigrants, man. Statue of Liberty, right? Welcoming everybody as they come in on the boats.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so I'm hoping that in starting to look back to that, that is going to bring back some inclusion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bring that circle back because we're all in this together. America has been fabulous. Just a really great example of when America is attacked and under trauma,
Mm-hmm.
America is good at coming together as a nation.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that America can come together as a nation because it's the right thing to do to take the nation to its next level,
Yeah.
not because it's under attack.
Yeah, I think the only thing that, and we've seen that during this pandemic, the only thing that will not allow the country to come together is the internal turmoil, right? That they're facing with one another, right? And so, we saw it come to a head with the protests and the riots going on in the middle of a pandemic, in the
In the
middle of
middle,
an economic crisis,
in the middle of a
right?
pandemic, in the middle of a pandemic,
So,
people are coming
so
out and protesting in the middle of a pandemic. That's right.
right, right. The
And what is
presidential election,
Mhm.
the the
Everything?
yeah,
We have just lived through some serious history.
we lived through an attempted coup, right?
I mean,
Right.
we have just lived through some history moments, man. We go back. When are you going to be told your kids? I lived through that. I saw.
Right,
I just,
right.
things we have just, yeah. There's some stuff. I am just hoping that, where, and it's interesting, come back to that, creating an environment
Hmm.
where people can be motivated. That's what America's got to do again.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if the reaching out to immigrants is a way to deflect from dealing with do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dealing with internal, because a lot of times organizations do that, right? They're doing a big, huge hiring spree, and then they just move the old people around. Like,
Mhm.
oh, we know they're not really with the problem, but just move them into that department.
Yeah.
Come in, and just bring it all in and just act like this is really what's going on,
Right.
right?
Right.
We don't.
It's new people that they can pretend like we've got a good culture with, right? Versus people who've been here for a while that know, the deep, dark, ugly secret.
Yeah. So I hope we're not doing that. I hope
We'll
we're
see.
not doing that.
Time
We
will tell
will
us.
see. We will see, right? But
Yeah.
us as change agents have to keep pushing the idea of when we see this stuff happen, we got to inspect them, we got to adapt them. We have got to help the places where we have influence, and we have influence in the corporations of this world. That's where
Right.
we have influence, right? So
Right.
we have to take that influence as experts and professionals in our field to help the organizations do better.
Right.
Let's bring Agile alive for them and with teams so that the workplace is a better place. And then I think we gotta have a good start, so to speak. We'll have a good start. Anyway, what are your closing comments, Victor? What are your closing comments?
Closing comments. There are a lot of job opportunities out there if you're an agilist and looking for a position. Don't feel locked in the current role you're in if it's not a good fit for you. I've got in the last 30 days, probably I know 10 people who got job offers, 10 different people who I've kind of worked with who have gotten offers. So it's definitely not a bad time to be a Scrum Master. And if you're looking to get certified as a Scrum Master or product owner, you can go to beardedeagle.com and take a look. I know there are several classes coming up.
Actually, you have to start to have a little bit of a schedule.
Right? Coming up this month and next month. So it's a great time. It's a great time.
It is, yeah. I'm actually doing some classes again. I'm gonna put some more out. Yeah, I'm actually doing some called work.
Yeah.
I am. And we just want to invite you. We will be doing we're starting on the 20, I want to say it's the 24th. We're starting the accelerator program. So if you're interested in that, get in touch, right? You'll see it. It's on LinkedIn profile, etc. get in touch. Let's talk to you about what we're doing with that program. And I'm working right now.
Ready to demo anything for Friday?
Sorry.
Let's go. And we've got I'm getting ready to do an affirmation challenge coming up too.
Okay.
Yeah,
Another challenge loading up.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing one, and I will invite like kind of the Agile crowd to it too, right? But I've really just been, and it's this idea of where people are right now. I'm just understanding how people are kind of very much in this trauma space, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people have lost who they are
Mm-hmm.
and all the trauma, and I want people to kind of come back and kind of rediscover the essence that's them and their significance. So I'm going to be doing a challenge around that. I'm kind of excited about it. Yeah, so that's going to be coming down pipe. It's not necessarily an Agile thing.
Right.
But it's a life thing. But being the Agilist that I am, everything I do has always got that sprinkled in it, you know what I mean? Because I'm always talking about evolution and evolving. And I just think this is one of the ways to do it, because once you start hitting with the mindset, right, getting back inside people's heads and getting people to get in their heads, right, and out of their heads with the stories that they're telling themselves, they can start being able to stand up a lot taller. And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to help people stand up tall.
Good.
Because when you're standing up tall, you reach a lot further than when you're bent over, right? So yes, I'm excited about that coming. So we will be here again next week, Thursday, and we will be talking Agile. I don't know who will be with us. We'll just see. You'll just have to show up and see, right? Because we just don't know what's coming. But we want to encourage everybody in everything that you do, right? You have the ability to do more than you think you can. The idea is just keep experimenting. This thing called the journey of life, you're doing it every day. Right? And as long as you keep doing it, you've got to keep inspecting and adapting. And you've got to remember to respect the people you're doing the journey with and the people you're going to collide with on the path. That's going to make all the difference in the world. So guys, stay healthy, stay strong, and we'll see you again next week, Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me, Victor. As always, appreciate you. Take care.
Have a good evening.